In the world of adult animated shows, marriages are a common type of relationship to focus on. There are many reasons for this, but the main purpose is to be a spin on the traditional nuclear family. Because a lot of these are spins on classic tropes, not all of these relationships are particularly good or healthy. So which of these adult cartoon marriages are healthy and which are utterly toxic? I'm Caleb with Wicked Binge, and this is Adult Cartoon Marriages Healthy to Toxic. A couple of rules are necessary before we get started. Firstly, they must be from an adult animated cartoon, so shows that have adult themes but are still marketed towards children like Adventure Time and Regular Show don't make the list. Secondly, they must be married. Whether we see their wedding or they confirm it at some point, they can't just be dating or engaged, but actually married. Finally, only one married couple per series. With our rules set, we can talk about the best relationships on this list. These are the healthy relationships. The gold medal of healthiness goes to Moxie and Millie from Hell of a Boss. While the two of them are trained killers and literal demons, they are shown to be quite loving throughout the show. The two of them are shown to tease each other at times, but that's not particularly a toxic trait. It's even shown in the latest episode at the time of writing this, Ozzy's, that not only did the two of them still go on dates, but the fact that they actively love each other is shown to be at least slightly abnormal for hell. Moxie is shown to write songs for Millie, and the two of them even work together quite well. Not only is this unique for an adult animated show, but it's doubly unique on account that they are literally from hell. Earning our silver medal of healthiness is Princess Carolyn and Judah Manodog from BoJack Horseman. PC had been a major character in BoJack Horseman since the very first episode, and had been through her fair share of relationships, including with BoJack himself. Judah started off as PC's assistant in season 3, but gets fired in the subsequent season because he refused Charlie Witherspoon's offer without informing PC it even existed. They eventually start working together again in season 6 and eventually realize their love together. We don't really get to see their married life, but their relationship is shown to be sweet and caring from both ends. Judah leaves his band to play without him to help PC at work, while PC leaves work to see Judah's band. This is where Judah reveals he actually wrote a love song for PC, which is why he was a bit sad when she wouldn't be able to come to his show.
I love you, Princess Carolyn.
Judah and PC don't get a lot of screen time together, but what we do see is quite nice, and they do only rank lower than Moxie and Millie because we sadly don't get to see too much of them. The bronze medal of healthiness goes to none other than the Monarch and Dr. Mrs. the Monarch from the Venture Bros. The both of them met while working under Phantom Limb, and the Monarch wooed her, where she became Dr. Girlfriend and worked as his number 2. Sure, the two of them are supervillains, but that doesn't change how good they are to and for each other. Sure, the Monarch did get supremely jealous of her at one point and did go behind her back, which didn't go very well, and the two of them did break up, but in the end they got back together and became much stronger. The two of them are not only good for each other, but are quite fun to watch, hence their ranking. Ranking next on our list is Bob and Linda Belcher from Bob's Burgers. Being the titular characters of the show, most of the show focuses on their relationship, and the two of them are actually quite happy together. Sure, like all married couples, they have their issues, like Bob falling into the typical trope of forgetting their anniversary. They are never really seen fighting, and even in the episodes where they do quote-unquote fight, it's never abusive. It's usually about Bob being forgetful.
Today's my birthday?
Yes, Bob!
But in general, they're a good couple because they work together quite well, not only in the restaurant, but in their personal lives. They challenge each other quite well, which makes them quite the pair, and they only rank outside the top 3 because they do fight more often than the others, even though not by much. From King of the Hill, our next couple is Hank and Peggy Hill. Hank and Peggy are another couple like Bob and Linda who don't really have very many problems. Sure, the two of them fight whenever Peggy gets a new job or Hank gets addicted to video games and the like, but it's not like whole episodes are made about it. Hank does seem to really love Peggy though, but due to his conservative lean, he doesn't always enjoy some of her exploits. They argue on occasion about Peggy teaching sex ed or how to raise Bobby, but most of it's really not that bad. It never goes beyond a petty dinner argument and doesn't come close to fistfighting. So honestly, Hank and Peggy aren't a bad couple in the slightest, but they do have to rank here from necessity as they aren't nearly as quote-unquote perfect as the previous entrants on our list. Next up are Cleveland Brown and Donna Tubbs from The Cleveland Show. Cleveland and Donna met in high school, but didn't get together until much later in life. They have a very strong relationship, although they do tease and fight on occasion. Cleveland loves Donna enough to take on Roberta and Rollo as stepchildren after the two get married. They do fight occasionally, but it seems to be more trivial compared to some of the others on our list, and they honestly don't have very many problems. They do fall here because they have more problems than the previous entrants, although it's not really by much. Rounding out the healthy section of our list is Kif Kroger and Amy Wong from Futurama. Kif and Amy are a relationship that have been set up since the near beginning of the show. And yes, the two of them aren't technically married in the traditional sense, but they did complete the wedding ceremony of Kif's people, so we'll count them. The two of them are actually quite the good couple, as Kif is able to quell Amy's more promiscuous side for most of the series. They do have their fair share of scandals, such as Amy sleeping with Zap after Kif is dead, and Kif not wanting to stay with her after this, but in the end, they do get together again and are much stronger for it. You also can't fully blame Amy for the decision she made, because Zap does like to prey on disadvantaged or grieving people, but we understand Kif's decision. Despite their generally great relationship, their baggage is enough to place them here on the list. With the healthy relationships talked about, we move down to the relationship gray area. The original adult cartoon married couple, Homer and Marge Simpson from The Simpsons, start the gray area. Homer and Marge are the classic examples of an adult married couple. They met in high school and got married mostly because Marge got pregnant. There are plenty of episodes focusing on their marriage, whether it be when they got married a second time or Homer supposedly cheating. But after all of these events, they get back together. Their relationship has even survived Marge's amnesia or severe injuries to both parties. Homer and Marge have a strong relationship and even stick by each other in tough situations.
Marge, you destroyed my interest in weather.
However, they do fight often. Homer's antics tend to cause severe trouble for Marge, such as framing her for a drunk driving accident, and the future episodes show they don't tend to stay together, hence why we have to pull them down some from the good section into our gray area. The next couple in the gray area is Marty and Barbara Globerman from Big Mouth. Due to the main characters of Big Mouth being teenagers, we don't really get to see too much of this relationship. From what we can see though is that Marty is a strongly opinionated man and generally abusive to Andrew, but not really towards Barbara. They do fight on occasion, but not really more than the average couple, and Barbara just kind of submits to whatever Marty is doing at the time. Sure, Barbara does sort of come into her own when the menopause Banshee comes around, but even after that, she just kind of falls to the back and lets Marty do whatever he feels is necessary. If it wasn't for Marty's abusive tendencies, they might be ranked a bit higher. Reigning from F is for family, up next is Frank and Sue Murphy. Frank and Sue, much like most of this list, met quite young and got married because Frank got Sue pregnant. The two share quite a loving relationship, although it is strained at times due to the financial problems the two of them face. Frank is even shown to be quite jealous of Sue at times because he didn't get to live his dream, but she seems to live hers. Frank does love Sue with all his heart and is mostly unaware of how badly he treats Sue. Frank is not shown to be particularly abusive to her or the kids, and it seems to be all bark and no bite, because he and Sue do argue, but that's about it.
I thought you were gonna be happy tonight.
Never assume that!
Frank even publicly states how much he loves Sue and was willing to die because of how he was treating her, realizing it was a massive mistake. They are also pretty good partners and play off of each other well, which is always important to have in a partner, so we're confident in their placement in this part of the list. Rounding out the gray area is Beth and Jerry Smith from Rick and Morty. Beth and Jerry fall into the same trap as a lot of characters on this list because they got together when Beth got pregnant with Summer. But, unlike the others, their marriage is not nearly as strong. Rick's D-Minute showed that they both would have been successful if they didn't get together, and they do get divorced later on in the show. Jerry is shown to not particularly respect Beth's job as a horse surgeon, and Beth sees Jerry as sort of a worm. It is also revealed that Beth only really stays with Jerry because she knows he would never leave her, which is a product of her abandonment issues having Rick as a father. However, they don't fall into the toxic section because they do truly love each other to some degree. At the end of the aforementioned Rixty minutes, it's implied they are some sort of soulmates and they do get back together by the end of season 3. They do care about each other and their children enough to save them in the gray area. With the gray area settled, we move down to the worst of the worst. These are the toxic relationships. Starting off the toxic section of our list is Lana Kane and Robert from Archer. The reason they fall into the toxic section is quite obvious, actually. It seems Lana only married Robert for his money and still loves Archer instead. It seems the money is being used for Lana and Archer's baby, and honestly, we understand that. Robert is openly racist and calls sleeping with black women exotic, and Lana just doesn't like him at all. Robert is also more than happy to keep big and important secrets from Lana as long as it saves his own bacon, and he doesn't really seem to care for her, although we can't be sure. The only reason they don't fall further is that they're not openly abusive. Lana's just using Robert for money. Ranking right outside the bottom 3 is Stan and Francine Smith from American Dad. Stan and Francine are another couple where it's quite obvious why they fall here. Even their first meeting is quite interesting. Stan can be seen as downright emotionally abusive, but not particularly physically abusive. He tricks his family into believing that they were going on vacation while he watched sports. It's also revealed that both he and Francine are only together for shallow reasons in the episode Shallow Vows, and they are shown to threaten each other if the situation comes to it. Stan and Francine do love each other to a degree, and Francine does cherish her position as a trophy wife.
Alzheimer's runs in my family.
You'll be dealing with that solo.
But that doesn't stop the abuse they sling at each other. Luckily, the abuse is mostly verbal and emotional, and while we never thought we'd say that as a positive, that is definitely a positive compared to some of the other couples we haven't talked about yet. So, due to a lack of severe or consistent abuse on both the physical and emotional levels, we can't put them in the bottom 3 in good conscience. Bogarting the bronze medal of toxicity is South Park's Randy and Sharon Marsh. We've talked about these two before, and while they aren't the most toxic relationship in South Park, they are still quite toxic. Both of them are quite hot-headed, and while Sharon tends to be the more level-headed of the two, even that's not always true. They fight verbally in a lot of episodes, especially after Randy buys and starts operating Tiggerty Farms. It goes to the point where they get divorced and remarried in one episode and do physically fight in the episode Pandemic. By late in the series, Sharon throws a party because Randy is getting arrested, showing that they pretty much hate each other, and earlier episodes do confirm that they were faking the happiness that they felt around each other. But hey, at least they don't consistently physically abuse each other like the following set of couples on this list. Speaking of, snatching our silver medal of toxicity is Peter and Lois Griffin from Family Guy. Anyone who has watched Family Guy knows that these two share a massively abusive relationship. Both of them verbally and physically abuse each other and their children, especially Meg. They also fight more often than most of these couples, and while not many episodes focus on their marriage issues, the ones that do show that they don't get through it as quickly as others. They don't fall to the bottom because it does seem like they do care about each other quite a lot, as they have had at least 4 children together, and they stayed together even after Peter killed one of them. Lois at one point even loved Peter enough to not take millions of dollars from Carter when he offered her that rather than marry him.
It's about holding each other during a thunderstorm.
While they are quite abusive towards each other, they actually love each other enough to some degree, which is more than we can say for the next entrant on our list. Speaking of, grabbing the gold medal of toxicity is King Zog and Queen Dagmar from Matt Groening's Disenchantment. Zog and Dagmar are here for very obvious reasons if you've seen the show. Zog spends most of the first season trying to find the tools necessary to revive Dagmar, who had been turned to stone. Zog truly loved Dagmar, and he's not to blame for this, because even though he did remarry while Dagmar was stone, this was more of a political thing than anything. The real reason they're down here is that Dagmar is the most toxic person probably in existence. Not only did she only marry Zog and birth Bean to fulfill a prophecy at her home, but she tried to kill Zog only for her plan to backfire. It seems she never truly loved Zog and only used him for political reasons. Dagmar also shows very little care for Bean outside of her use in the prophecy and doesn't care for the kingdom either. Sure, Zog's not the most attentive husband from what we've seen, but even he didn't deserve what she did. But as always, we have a few extra medals to hand out to these relationships. Earning our Darwin medal for the dumbest relationship goes to Lana Kane and Robert, because the relationship is mostly a ploy that Lana doesn't want to be in, from what we can tell. Coincidentally, Lana Kane and Robert also gain the Greed medal. This is because, from what we can tell, Lana is just married to Robert for his money so she can provide for her and Archer's daughter. Our Wrath medal goes to Peter and Lois, who are physically and emotionally abusive to each other in quite a few episodes. Earning our Gluttony medal is Bob and Linda. Truth be told, this is mostly because a lot of the stuff they do revolves around the restaurant, and therefore, food. The Envy medal goes to our good friends Frank and Sue, mostly because Frank gets jealous of Sue on a few different occasions, although not very often. Earning the Pride medal is PC and Judah, who pride their relationship enough to have both a regular and an industry wedding. But let us know in the comments section if you agree with our ranking, and tell us what we should cover next. Remember to hit that notification bell and binge more of our videos. But most importantly, stay wicked.